SOTC 52 devotions. This is number 29. So, hey, listen, we're out here at the weight pile today outside. And, you know, I've worked out for years outside because back in the day when I was working out in San Quentin prison, all the weights were outside. And, you know, a lot of guys work out with weights inside where it's nice and comfy and cozy. It's cool in the summer and warm in the winter. But when you work out outside, it kind of gives you the full breath and sting of the elements, right? So I've always worked out outside for years, and it all came from San Quentin prison, from being down there. But there was something that I recognized working out with weights. There's a parallel that I want to share with you this morning before we do number 29, straight lines, because it applies. And you know, I'm going to tell you, man, it will change your life if you grab onto it. So there's somebody out there, maybe this morning, this afternoon, watching this. There's a rule about iron, and the rule is this: you either drive it or it drives you. There's no playing games. When you sit down, you got over 300 pounds, and you pull it up off that rack, and it starts coming down. It's going to drive you, or you're going to drive it. Now, that's a fact. And there's no way to talk around that. There's no way to buffalo your way around that. There's no way to BS around that. There's no way to change the narrative around that. That just is what it is. And that, my friend, is exactly what sin is. You're either going to drive it or it's going to drive you. And there isn't any in between. There's no excuses. There's no way to lessen the impact of it. It's either going to drive you or you drive it. It's just like iron. So when you're looking at your life and you're looking at the things that are happening in your life, you can't explain around it. You either do it or you don't do it. Now I'm going to show you exactly in a demonstration what that means. When you pull this thing up off the rack, it's heavy. And when you lower it down, it gets heavier. When you get right down here, it gets real heavy. That's just like sin, my friend. It's going to drive you down, and as it gets heavier and heavier and heavier, the tendency is going to be to call out to somebody, maybe to take it off you. Hey, help me, spot me, get this off me. Or you can just drive it. Now listen, there's a lot of you been going through the same stuff over and over and over, fall into the same sin. The Bible says, get away from the sin that so easily besets you. In other words, conquer the sin that's easy for you to fall into. Some people don't have any problem with booze. That's not a sin that easily besets. Some other guys, every time they see a bottle of beer, it's like, oh man, you know, and they know they shouldn't because one leads to 10. Whatever it may be. There's a ton of sin out there, and it wants to drive you. Brother, it wants to drive you all the way down. So you're either going to push it or it's going to push you. Now this straight lines, this chapter about straight lines, you need to read it, man, because here's the deal. This is what it is in a nutshell. God doesn't move, very rarely does he move in a straight line. He's moving like this. Well, how come he does that? Well, because if he moves in a straight line, then everybody, including the devil, knows exactly what he's doing. He'll tell you what he's going to do, but then how he does it is very rarely in a straight line. Look at Joseph. Man, he was all over the place, down to Nazareth, over to Bethlehem, up over to the lake, up over to the hills, over to the manger. He was all over the place. How come? Because the enemy was trying to kill him, and God was outsmarting him at every move, right? Look at the disciples when they were going to have the Last Supper. Jesus told the disciples, you go down, you find a guy who's carrying a pail of water, walking through town, tell him the master needs a room, then he'll take you to a place, and then they'll take you upstairs. Why not just give the guys the address? Go to 1472 2nd Street and we'll have dinner there. Because if he did, Judas would have heard it. Judas would have told the priest, and that would have been game, set, match, and Jesus still had stuff he wanted to do. See, I can go on and on and on about how God doesn't move in straight lines. He's always moving in different ways so that he can accomplish his purpose in your life. He's got a plan for you. He's got great things in store for you, but he's not going to just go bang and do it. He's going to move it like this because he's got an enemy that wants to stop what he has for your life. So here's the deal. You're either going to drive sin out of your life and follow that path, even if it's not straight, to God's glory in your life, or you're going to let it drive you down. You drive it, or it drives you. And I'm saying this morning, man, it's worth driving it. It's worth getting behind and pushing it and getting it out of your life. Push sin out of your life. And if it's not a straight line, don't think it's because God is not with you. chances are the crookeder the pathway, the more he is with you. I hope that helped you this morning. See ya.